So thank you all for coming to the closing reception of Vanessa Viruet's exhibition, Pañuelxs. It's been up since January 22nd, and it's been a wonderful show. Thanks to everyone who's been around and come and see the show. And thank you so much to Vanessa for making this beautiful work and for sharing it with us in New Harmony and University of Southern Indiana. For those of you who don't know, my name is Iris Williamson. I'm the gallery manager of the gallery here, and I would like to just do a quick introduction for Vanessa here. So this exhibition here, Vanessa Viruet utilizes materials such as bandanas, hoop earrings, cars, and found objects to investigate gender roles, cultural identity, and socioeconomic experiences. In Pañuelxs, large-scale installation, printed fabric, shiny objects, and repetitive patterns using bold shapes and colors serve as symbols or flags to share both communal and personal stories. Pañuelxs, which is a play on the Spanish word for hanky, explores the various ways in which we present ourselves, utilizing the gallery's exhibition space as the hyper-feminine interior space and the outdoor site-specific exhibition as a hyper-masculine public space. Viruet flamboyantly displays expressions of identity. While creating a shared space that speaks to community experience, Pañuelxs is also a space to celebrate Viruet's own experiences as queer, Latina, and first-generation college graduate. Vanessa Viruet is a Chicago-based fiber artist of Puerto Rican descent. She creates monumental-scale artworks to examine the complex histories rooted in textiles such as identity, cultural heritage, gender, and class. Viruet holds a BFA and an MA in teaching from the Maryland Institute College of Art, as well as an MFA from Cranbrook Academy of Art. She currently serves as an art instructor for Chicago Public Schools and teaches in the Fiber and Material Studies Department at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Someday she hopes to have her own scholarship for artists of color. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Hi, thank you for coming. I'd like to start off with this picture for my presentation. This is I think it's my 7th grade photo. And J-Lo was really in when I was in 2nd grade. So there's like a music video of her with a bandana and the outfit, and it was just really hot. And I just think it like really captures my identity. And also there's this weird thing happening where I was actually allowed to wear a bandana, which is part of my story. Growing up in a neighborhood with a lot of gang violence, my parents were like very anti-bandana. So I don't know how I got away with that poor picture of me, but it happened. So I guess I'll start. So part of my work deals with ideas of reaching. A lot of my work deals with this idea of reaching and trying to connect with community. As I exist in this space of being an artist operating in the art world, but then also having this past and this family and these connections to my roots. And the contradictions that exist in navigating both of those spaces. So a lot of my work deals with that. A lot of my work deals with being Puerto Rican and not being from the island, and also being like feeling not Puerto Rican enough and not American enough, and also not feeling queer enough because I'm very feminine presenting. And the things that I make are playing off of those things and trying to understand why we have these like extreme distinctions. So keep that in mind. This slide is really interesting. When I was thinking a lot about not being Puerto Rican enough and not being American enough, when I was in undergrad, I had this stupid tattoo that was just like that. And it was my first tattoo, and it was an impulsive decision. And they asked me what I wanted, and I was like, this is what I want. I want the tattoo, and I will make Puerto Rican. And it's the only thing I could think of that was like meaningful enough for me to get, because I was super proud of being Puerto Rican. And I call it a stupid tattoo because I feel all those complications about not being Puerto Rican enough and not being American enough and having this tattoo. So I did this project 1 year at the Puerto Rican Puerto Rican festival in Chicago, which is huge. And I asked people if they would let me give them temporary tattoos and documented everyone's skin tone, just because I felt like I had to look Puerto Rican enough. And I was like trying to see what it looks like to be Puerto Rican. So this is just a fun little project that I did back then. And dealing with that idea of like constantly being on the border. Let's see, smart computer. I also noticed that here in the mainland, there's a lot of flag use. And when I was in undergrad, I was homesick in Baltimore. The first time I was away from my family, the first time I was ever allowed to be away from my family. And part of the reason I went all the way to Baltimore. And yeah, I was feeling homesick. I was feeling like very isolated and, confused, and, decided to start looking at my family and ways to connect with them through my work. And I started to realize that it didn't matter, the work that I made didn't matter if it didn't connect with the people that I cared about. If they didn't understand it, or if it didn't resonate with them, it wasn't forward. And that's when I started to think about how the art world needs to be more people literate instead of people becoming more art literate. A lot of the research I did, my practice is also very research-based. And when I was in that time of investigating my cultural heritage, I started looking at costume and traditional costume in Puerto Rico and Latin America in general. And I learned a lot about the history of the ruffle. And it became like a really interesting form for me to play with as sort of the way I guess an artist would paint the canvas, but I used the ruffle that way, because I work with material. And I started thinking about how this indigenous group of people, through colonization, their cultural costume transformed into being like what this Barbie doll costume looks like. So the Barbie costume is like a white ruffle dress, but actually it shouldn't look anything like that. That's not traditional Latin American costume at all. That's Spain's influence in colonization. So I started thinking a lot about how fashion and colonization are so tied together. Sorry, this is a fancy computer. Yeah, I'm buzzed. Oh, and then the picture in the middle is of Carmen Miranda, who was a Latina icon, and her own people really started to reject her because of how much she colonized herself and gentrified herself to fit into Hollywood standards. But she also was very well known for like her ruffle garment and ruffle costumes. So here are some of the ruffle works that I made. And some of the forms, so the way that I work or the way that I speak through materials is I reinvestigate certain forms over and over and over again until I can't think about them anymore. So I'll make things until I understand it as a language, and then I'm like, I will never make another one of those again. Until something else comes up and then it makes me want to make just one more. So I made a lot of ruffle things for a while. I made some flag ruffles, I made black and white ruffles. I was thinking about my narratives. I started thinking about flesh stone. Flesh stone is always really interesting to me, especially as a gradient. Talk about loss of self and loss of identity. I made ruffles out of clear material, like you see in the show here, and talking about defining borders and edges of this form. And I've also made reflective works. So those kind of themes and those kinds of palettes are kind of my like auto default palette, I guess. So I think through the materials that way. So this is like, and I really like the reflective piece because I thought it was interesting to see someone's flesh reflected in the thing and it's acting as a mirror. So the piece itself is called reflejo, which means to reflect, and it also is a play on reflection. So the word and the actual thing that's happening. So my artistic practice involves material explorations of the languages of flags. And I think, flags are used to establish a meaning for ourselves and like an allegiance. So in this piece right here, I actually sat with my mom and my grandmother and we deconstructed 50 Puerto Rican flags and cut out all the pieces and sewed them back together to make this giant American flag. So it's all little triangles from the Puerto Rican flag sewn together. and all the stripes are from all the Puerto Rican flags. So we reconstructed the whole thing to make one huge American flag. So we needed 50 because the Puerto Rican flag only has one star. And then we took an American flag and cut it all up to make the Puerto Rican flag. So they were kind of like mirroring each other. And this thing happened where the Puerto Rican flag was, the new Puerto Rican flag was so tiny in comparison to the new American flag. And it brought up a really interesting conversation between my grandmother and my mother. We spent the whole time talking Spanish to one another, and it was a really great opportunity to get my family engaged in my practice for the first time, and to talk about how I don't feel Puerto Rican, and the ways that I feel like I'm falling short as a Puerto Rican woman in the United States. To engage my family of non-artists in my practice was really important to me. So, and I think that this piece really talks, the opportunity of making it with them. They are my best assistants, by the way. I would choose them over anyone. My mom is brilliant. She's the best problem solver. But it was really nice to just have these kind of conversations with them. Again, back to that idea of reaching for them and them reaching back to me, and I think my work is more valuable than, so this is another flag piece. I made a lot of flags. I thought about flags a lot. My work involves flags and flagging a lot. So this is a clear American flag that I made out of a plastic vinyl material. And I was just thinking about the election that was happening at the time, and I was feeling just all kinds of feeling. I was thinking about what does it mean to remove this red, white, and blue, this color, this and that, and what does it mean to see through? What does it mean to make it out of a clear, tacky, transparent, fake plastic material? So I was thinking a lot about fake patriotism. So I was also thinking about surrendering, color, bleaching, color, watering down yourself, removing identity. But flagging has also taken place in the form of bandanas. So bandanas are a way of signaling. Bandanas have historically been used as a way of signaling from one person to another where you stand on different issues. So a long time ago, bandanas were used in a political revolution. They were used to symbolize a workers' strike. They've been used in gay culture to signal to other gay men when it was super illegal and dangerous to be gay, that they were interested in different kinks and fetishes in a quiet way. And they're also used in gangs, and I thought that duality of gang culture and gay culture, that hyper-masculine expression of, and I say hyper-masculine use of the bandanas was really interesting. And I also, again, in grad school, was thinking a lot about how I don't fit in here. I don't fit in here, and when you go to grad school, you're thinking about what the next steps are. And for me, I had a weekly meltdown with my advisor about what am I going to do after I leave here? I am not soft. I'm nice, but I don't think I'm soft. And I'm not soft like the professors that I had in my undergraduate degree program, especially the field that I work in. And I was like, who is going to hire me? Because I'm just not like that. And every week I had to just check myself and tell myself that that's why someone's gonna want you. That's why you need to be here. That's why you keep doing this. But it took a lot of breaking that down and then kept talking myself back up. But I made this red carpet piece and installed it at Cranbrook and the grand staircase, because again, these art institutions are full of money and they're full of these spaces that I normally don't get to occupy. And I thought it would be cool to make this hood identified symbol and bring it into there and have it be my first little red carpet in this space that is not usually welcoming to people from me, especially because I come from a low income background. These are pictures. This is a picture of me taking it out to sketch cars. Probably the only thing we can really like talk about, is car stuff. And I was living outside of Detroit and thinking a lot about New York City. And at that point I was like, I hate flags. I just made that clear flag. I was like, I'm never making another flag ever again. I'm so tired of these flags. And then I was driving on the highway and homesick, and I saw a semi with a race car decal, and I was like, ooh, that's the last flag I'm gonna make. That's the last one I'm gonna make. I need that one. And it just touched my soul, and I was like, I know what I have to do now. And so I went home and I sketched, and I talked to a friend about it, and we were talking about the bandana stuff and being in art school and not being able to wear bandanas. And we just talked about how it's hard to make artwork about that because people don't understand that experience. And people don't understand what it's like to grow up in a neighborhood that have a lot of gang violence. And people don't understand what it's like to be like comfortable and also fearful at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just the reality sometimes. So I decided to go to all the beauty shops in Detroit and buy all the bandanas I could find, and make this piece, which was a giant race car flag. And as I was doing this, and I will say this is part of my practice, has really been that idea of reaching for community, but then also like unearthing things. So, and being research-based. So I was like, let me find out how many black squares and how many white squares there are on this race car flag so I can be accurate about it. And on my journey to find that answer, there is no answer for that. It's irrelevant. There's no black or white. There's no number. But I found all these other race car flags that were really interesting. And they're using race car culture. So that was a really, I guess you guys are probably, so you guys know race cars. A lot. A little bit, maybe. This is the checkerboard flag, which is the end of the race. But then we have these other flags that are using race car and NASCAR racing. So the flag on the top that's half black, half white means unsportsmanlike conduct. And the one below it means you're disqualified. And I thought that they were really interesting ways to use this idea of like black and white and to symbolize like balance or things being off balance or equality. And I was thinking about a play on the word race and racing. So I made these flags to deal with, to examine that a little bit more. And I screen printed them. I feel like I should talk about how I made these. I screen printed them. And I sold them. And I built that box. With help. And I sold them together. And so we made this race car thing. But it was really just this experience of like, I have a question about how many squares are on this flag, because I want to be accurate, and then it took me down this rabbit hole. And I always say that if I'm lucky enough to continue making work for the rest of my life, I'm just going to continue unearthing the next thing and pulling on this like invisible rope of things to investigate and look at, and also connect back to. So this is my race car work. I also started to try to engage cars in my work. Like I said, I took my pieces outside and started to use it as a shroud for the vehicle. So I designed this 22-foot bandana, screen printed it with my bare hands, and started to get objects involved in my work and see them as a way of like performing the work, or as a frame for viewing the work. So there's my hardcover. It's also outside. It's waterproof. There are many versions of it. I had to learn a couple times how to do it the right way. So this is another, again, I was thinking a lot about queerness and gay identity. There's also this really interesting story. I know a lot about bandanas now, because I will never have someone come up to me like, did you know? I do know. Margaret Washington got a bandana commissioned for George Washington's candidacy, for example. And bandanas come from India, and they traveled from India. That textile production was banned in India, so they just went straight to the colonies to bypass the taxation. And that's that's how textile production of bandanas and things like that happen in the United States. So, but that's just either here or there. That stuff that doesn't necessarily become part of the work, it's just stuff that I know that helps me to make the work, I guess. So I like to know things and understand things. But yeah, in gay culture, you know, bandanas and the color of the bandanas are very, very big component to signaling and flagging, I think, ourselves. So even though I'm like, I'm not making bandanas, I'm not making flags anymore, I'm still dealing with the idea of flagging and like how we identify ourselves and how we proclaim who we are. So, so with that piece, I made another version because you can't make the black one without making the white one, right? So then I had to make the white one, and I did a video of them interacting with one another and sort of having like this conversation or this conversation. I wasn't really sure. It was my first attempt at making video, and I just did some audio recordings of my dad and my brother talking about whatever they want to talk about. So sometimes they're talking about cars, sometimes they're talking about bikes, sometimes they're talking about my nephews. In this, there's one part where my brother says that he wasn't allowed to wear certain colors as a child, which is very true. And my dad just responded with, yeah, I used to tell you dress smart, stay alive. And that is just the perfect example of how we grow. And also, again, it means something really special when the work is installed in a gallery space. I think having people from my community come out and see the work and feel seen and feel connected to it is really important to me. Also, the scale of the work is this gesture of taking over. So I intentionally make the bandanas extra large to take up as much space and to sort of just elbow my way into this space that hasn't always been welcoming to, you know, Latinas from low-income communities. So queer Latinas from low-income communities. I've got the whole list. So when I graduated with my master's, my second master's, you know, again, coming from a low-income background, it was celebrated, but it wasn't like celebrated in the ways that I was seeing a lot of my peers being celebrated with like these lavish, extravagant gifts. I was just kind of like, my whole family came out in a minivan to see me graduate, and that was cool. And it's nice, you know. It's obviously more meaningful that way. But, you know, I really wanted to be celebrated, and I was thinking a lot about how other milestones in Latinx culture are celebrated with these like extravagant parties, like quinceañeras and baptisms and baby showers and weddings. And in Puerto Rico, we have these things called tapias, and they're like these little cheap, tacky ribbon things, and the people sit around and they glue them, hot glue them together, and they, at the party, you give them away as like party favors, and you like pin them on people to say like, thank you for coming. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, I want someone to make something for me. I just graduated my second master's, like that's pretty badass. You know, I just put myself in college for the third time. So I did this apprenticeship at the fabric workshop in Philadelphia right after graduation, and I designed this hood academic icon and this like figure. And I was thinking a lot about like how proud I was to be Latina and to be in that space and to be hood, but then also really fucking smart. So part of that work has manifested in a bunch of different ways. So right now that's something I'm thinking a lot about is, as much as I love examining masculinity, I was trying to figure out how do I situate myself in this work as well as a femme Latina. So I started making this, I made this repeat textile at the fabric workshop in Philadelphia. I made some t-shirts that the intent is to raise money to make a little mini scholarship, because I realized like $2,000 actually makes a huge difference to someone in that position of like, whether or not you can buy your books for a 4-year semester. So the shirts and the stickers and all of that were designed to sort of give back, because even though I'm not done paying my loans off, and I won't be forever, I also know that I don't have to be fully done to help other people. So, things that she has in there. And I was thinking about that as like a really great stage for a collaboration between my work and her work, or her things. So China Cabinet has been a frame in the way that like a canvas would be stretched or something. Very theatrical and dramatic and flamboyant and your face. So I think that's my Instagram.
Would you go into some questions? Opening up the questions?
Yeah, I was gonna go next.
Yeah, if you all have questions.
I'm Alicia Porter. I'm so excited, and I'm really happy that Tanya's asked me to attend. I didn't know your work, and as I walked through, the scale was really impactful. And these pañuelxs, or like these bandanas that have, I come from the southwest of New Mexico. I'm in my second semester as an MFA in Southern Illinois. And for you to put that red carpet down at Alfred, or was it
At
Cranbrook? Thank you. It's a feeling of being understood, as you said, like these spaces are ultimately not welcoming, and money and status, as far as I too am Latina, queer individual in those moments where, our counterparts are celebrated, that we don't get the marriages, the celebrations of baby showers, that, recognize our accomplishments or identities by not getting married or having children and doing those stuff. It's just incredible. Your work is incredible. I'm honored to have seen it and to hear you speak about that border personality, not feeling, absolutely enough of anything to be relevant. It's true. It's happening, and so just thank you for trailblazing and being very genuine to your identity and your experiences. And it's, to me, it's so inspiring. Thank you, Vanessa.
I'm curious about your flag project, Puerto Rican flag and U.S. flag. And what I noticed was that you had different sizes of stars. You had some just parts of stars coming out of the border and so on. And so I was wondering what your goal was for that and having it all, like, it looks so stiff in a regular flag, and this was all jumbled up. So what was your idea with it?
It was just, there was not, somehow when I got all the flags that I was able to collect, they were not all the same. So we just had to figure out how to make it work, which I think is like part of the, utilitarian, like we have to get this done. However it needs to get done. And that's where my mom's like ingenuity came in, because I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do here. These stars are not the same, Mom. And my mom was just like, she took over. I was like, okay, good. You do that, because I'm just gonna be stressed. But she sat there, and I don't have the photo up here, but I have this really great photo of her just like standing there with all the blue pieces and just pointing and trying to figure out like where to put things so that they all fit together. And I don't know, I think a lot of that was just really, it's the experience of making it with my grandma and my mom, and doing this like, and textiles too, like textiles really have this long, the reason I work in textiles and the reason I invested myself into an undergrad and graduate degree is because textiles really do touch on gender, class, history, labor, so all of these things are so interconnected, and having that experience of like sewing and labor with people that I love and seeing that it was really more of an experience of making. I don't even know if I showed that piece ever. I don't even know where it is in real life right now. I can't tell you where it is. But I know that, I like to talk about it with that experience and also the photos of the Puerto Rican festival. There was an experience of talking to people and asking them, what does it mean to be Puerto Rican to you here? How do you carry that on? How do you show people like here when in Chicago, what it means, and how do you pass this with your children?
Well, Puerto Rican family Chicago brings a youth memory back to when I lived in Chicago and raised my children there. That's the accident. And one day, we just lived a half block up in the car, and there was a parade going by, and a little girl, who must have been 3 or 4, saw it. And it was a Puerto Rican Independence Day parade, and all the girls were dressed in these white ruffles. And Rose just had a look at that, and she's like, she's little, and she runs up to the bedroom, comes back down, and she's dressed as much as she can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she had a ruffly white dress, she had bright green stockings and white shoes, and wedding bill, kids' wedding bill. Well, she was really into it. And I thought that was quick. You know, it was just a 4-year-old's interpretation of what she's seeing. And you know, what can I say? You know, very white. But the assumption that we don't interact or understand, that just, you know, that was just such a celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw it, I felt it was a celebration too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a more lived experience of living in a diverse city. You know.
My first gay pride parade actually happened like that in DC. I won an essay contest, and I had won a trip to DC with my mom, and I was like 4th grade, and we were there in the summer, and all of a sudden there was gay pride, and we didn't know, and I'm just like, Mom, why is everyone wearing rainbows? So my first gay pride parade was when I was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
So, yeah. My mom said they just really rainbows. Maybe they made it up. Maybe there's something to me. I don't know.
So one thing you said is that you don't feel like you're a soft person, but then you work in textiles. So I was just curious, like, how you sort of bridge that between like the working with softer materials, which are traditionally, you know, well, different traditions. I was curious, like, what you think. Well, first of all, what do you mean by soft? Because I was like, ooh, that's a really interesting comment.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, what did you mean by soft?
Yeah.
Anyway, how you kind of like put a paradox to using textiles, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah. I think in Spanish the word would be bruta. You know, I'm just a little bit aggressive. Like I'm an aggressive that, you know, I'm not, it's not soft. I don't know how to explain it. I have like my good energy still. Like I am in academia, I'm a professor now, and I teach little children, you know, pre-K through 8th graders, but I'm still like me. And my life experiences impact the way that I move through the world, you know. And I feel like the professors that I had were just very light and like, yes, everything's great. I'm wearing indigo, and like I love indigo, you know. And you know, just very, very specific. You know what I'm talking about, you know. So, and I'm just not that. So I felt like I am never going to be that. I mean, I do wear a lot of indigo now because I do indigo dyeing workshops in my class. So I always have a bunch of things to wear now. But and indigo's rad. But yeah.
I think that's okay. I think it's good now, because I think we have one sort of archetype of what the professor would be.
Exactly.
Anyway, I
And
really
it took a long time for me to unpack that because again, my whole life, my upbringing was like this is what like cis white men are academics, you know. Even when I try to do writing, I love to do some writing on socioeconomic textiles, right? And I have to constantly be like, this doesn't sound academic enough, but I'm like, whose voice is that you're listening to sounds academic? What does that mean? But on the note of textiles are badass. They are rugged. Like they can handle some stuff, you know. So you can just whip them out and hang them up, and they will bounce back. So I think that's one of the things I do like about textiles is like they are like compacted and then they take up space, you know. So they're not as fragile.
you in your path as an artist when you came to that? And if it was during school, graduate school, how did that work?
I think it's like something I thought about. Like, I made a lot of the ruffle work or not this ruffle work, but other ruffle work as an undergraduate because I was reaching for my family. And I was really trying to connect with them. And I remember thinking, I actually have a whole series of ruffle works that all named after family members because I called my mom and I was like, I don't know what to name my art. And I'm like, she's like, I don't know either. So I was like, I'm naming it after you. You have a beautiful name. So I remember the moment I put my mom's name on the little card, and it was Rita Isabel Gonzalez on the card. I was like, that is hell yeah, way better than untitled, blah, 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 you know? And I thought it was something really powerful to like naming my work after my sisters who have these beautiful names, and my father and my grandmother, and just bringing them into that space. So it's always something I've been aware of. I've always been aware of like feeling outside of it. And I think the feeling of being in art school, especially having to take on the amount of financial debt that I had to take to go and be in those spaces, really showed me that I belonged there, and I belonged in those spaces, but my pockets didn't. You know, my pockets did not show that I belonged there. That idea of, you know, changing my mindset to saying like, okay, I do belong here. That happened way later in second time in grad school. You know, after I had a teaching degree. And I know that I will say teaching children. So I've been a teacher for Chicago schools for this is my 9.5 year of working with CPS. And I work in the best school ever right now. I love those kids. It really taught me how to advocate for myself. Being a teacher, like when I went to art school the first time, I was just like young and naive, and it's like, I don't understand how I belong here. I don't understand this, but something feels like something's confusing. And then I'd go home to my family and have this like total shock experience of like contrast of art school, where they're not running anymore and I'm doing all this stuff. And yeah, I just remember wanting to explain my work to my mom and wanting her to be proud of me and being like, they don't understand this art school shit, you know? They don't get it. Like, you're talking about abstract, like, whatever, like, you know? But the moment I realized in grad school, I realized that, you know, work should be art, should be more people literate. That the art world needs to be more open to people rather than people trying to understand art as much. Was because I realized when it comes to who is going to uplift you, community will. So communities, like if I present a show to my community and I say, I want to do this thing to my community and this is my idea, what do you guys think? They're going to be like, hell yeah, that's amazing. Like we love you, you are awesome, right? You're badass. But if I do the same thing to the art world's going to constantly tell me to prove myself. How many accolades do you have? How many residencies did you get? Do you have enough time to take a year off of your whole life and travel the world? You know, have you been to New York? Right? Like all of these things that actually come down to money. And they don't have anything to do with my career or my skill or my talent. So that's why I realized art world was a lot less supportive than it likes to pretend it is. So I make work for my community, and if the art world likes it, great, cool. But really, it's not for the art world, it's for my school. Yes.
I missed the first 5 to 10 minutes of what your introduction of yourself, and partway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through your presentation, I thought, oh my God, I hope she doesn't get trapped in the art world. I hope she teaches children. And when you said that's what you're doing, I was like, yeah. Because you have a message that's so powerful, and you present it so well, it goes beyond what a piece on the wall can do. And I really think that's your gift, to combine the two and talk. Anyway, it was very impressive, and it opened my mind, and I've had Ukraine on my mind since this whole horrible thing happened. And, you know, we have all these things going on in our world that open us up, we privileged white people, and trying to stay open and trying to listen to what people are saying in their lives and the pain they're going through and process it in a way that's positive, that, you know, can do some good in a little tiny town. Anyway, you're very inspiring, thank you so much. And I'm glad you're a teacher, I wish I were a student of this.
I teach college too, so that's been really wonderful to have that balance. But one of the things I'm a firm believer in is that art has the ability to cross those barriers, you know, to like move beyond those barriers that sometimes we live in and sometimes we, you know, we've been operating in, so. Good.
So I'm curious, because I know, like, following your practice for the past few years, like, you've incorporated more of, like, direct objects of your family, whether it's, like, a portrait of your family members or furniture from the house that's representative of the things you grew up with. Have you ever thought about installing any of your work in your childhood home, or bringing it back and letting it exist in those spaces?
That's a good question. I haven't, mostly because there's so much stuff, you know? Like, the China cabinet lives in the same room where there's like a giant table and then like a wall. Like that photo is on a wall with like endless photos. Like, what is it? What is it called when they have all the photos to the ceiling? Salon style. My grandma has a salon style wall. So you know what I'm talking about. So I mean, yeah, in the future that would be a really interesting way of navigating. Go to bed now. Of doing things. I've definitely had like family involved, and I've been trying to incorporate the body a little bit more in the work, and that's something I'm starting to unpack. Dealing with like my own body image stuff and you know, child and stuff. But I'm trying to implicate all of those things little by little, but not yet.
I feel like you know, you talk about duality in your work, but I feel like you have this, I don't know, maybe it's intentional duality of like, you know, taking the object out of the space while the object is still existing in its original space. I don't know if that makes any sense. And just like celebrating your family and like letting these objects live with your family, because I feel documentation is really important in your work and having the physical object at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah, my mom has like a couple of my ruffle pieces, and I just roll my eyes every time I see them. It's because like when you see, I don't know, as like, I don't know if any of other artists are like, you know, you just kind of hate looking at your own stuff all the time, you know? So when I go in there, she's like, I'm gonna put this here, and I'm like, bleh, get rid of it, I hate it, you know? So there's like one or two things that I let her have that, or honestly, she has a lot of them because she's storing them. She has them. She just doesn't know what she has. But some of them she puts up. Every once in a while I'll come up and she'll be like, look at what I put up on the wall. I'm like, why? Or you made this weird ruffle thing on the wall and nobody understands it, Mom. And then, but
You're young, we're standing in that place, come on.
yeah, it's just, I mean, she really likes the Puerto Rican flag ruffles. Like I made a ruffle Puerto Rican flag. And she puts that one out every time there's like a festival. She's obsessed with it. But again, like I don't want to make abstract things that they don't relate to. I want to make, so she's also commissioning things too. Like that Puerto Rican hood academic thing, she's got me making a whole other series on it. She's like, I need this. So, and she also helped me put all those hoop earrings on herself with her bare hands. So, yeah. So my mom's a big help. Yes.
So you know I love your work, right? And as a Latina, I know where hoops represent. And I don't know how it started or where it comes from, but I think that's irrelevant. But in your work, well, how significant and why is it so significant? Especially with that piece behind you, it's lost in the ball. The pictures and stuff like that. So what's the significance and the importance of hoops in your work?
I think it comes down to that idea of flagging. So like that idea, the act of flagging, of like saying like, this is who I am, you know? So, you know, I can go to like an academic setting and have my big old hoops on and be myself and feel seen. you've been colonized into oblivion, but you're saying we are gonna be kings and lords now. And I can understand why someone would want to do that. So I'm not trying to judge.
Thank you all so much for coming. We're gonna have a reception now. We'll be